The Autoline Supplier Symposium is brought to you by our signature sponsor, Ford, Go Further, and also by Bridgestone, Your Journey, Our Passion. Dow Automotive Systems. Our breakthrough lightweight bonding technologies can be found in many vehicles on the road today. Complete and affordable solutions from Dow Automotive Systems. Denso, global supplier of advanced automotive technology, systems, and components. And by TI Automotive, Fluid Thinking.
Thank you everybody for joining us for the Autoline Supplier Symposium at the 2016 North American International Auto Show in Detroit. We've been doing the Supplier Symposium for about 4 years now. It's the industry days at the show. The prior 2 days were all about the media and the press introductions. Today, and you'll see a big crowd all around here, this is the people from the industry coming in to take a look at what's on the floor of the show. The designers, the engineers, the people who develop the cars, who do all the purchasing, the marketing, and they really use this as a benchmarking opportunity. We use it as an opportunity to put a focus on the supplier end of the business and on the purchasing end. And to that end right now, I'm joined by Birgit Behrendt. She's the Vice President of Global Programs and Purchasing Operations at the Ford Motor Company. And Birgit, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today.
Oh, John, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me, and apologies for my voice. You know, the winter came, with the auto show as usual, and so came the cold.
Well, I'm fighting a bit of a cold myself too, so Birgit, we'll get through this, I'm sure. Innovation is something that Ford's really talking a lot about at this show. They've been talking to the employees, they've been talking to the media about it. I'm curious from a purchasing standpoint, how do you get your purchasing operations focused on getting innovation into the product?
First of all, 2015 was a breakthrough year for Ford, and obviously our suppliers were key in delivering that success for us. So as we think about accelerating the One Ford plan, driving product excellence with passion, and also basically driving innovation through every part of our business, our suppliers play a really key role. And it's great to see that actually some of those innovations, the consumers are going to be able to see here at the show, not only through the all-new Fusion and all the driver assist technologies that we have on the Fusion. It's technology packed, the powertrain lineup, suppliers play a key role, the Raptor, but also we have two cool demonstrations, one demonstration, one simulation of two really cool technologies.
Okay, let's hear it. What do you have here?
Yeah. First of all, the F-150, a great vehicle that has been introduced last year, 39 years of truck leadership, and now actually we have made it even better. The Pro Trailer Backup Assist is a really cool invention for people who tow boats or who tow horse trailers. The most challenging piece of that is when you have to back up. And so we are delivering a cool technology with our supplier Magna that actually allows the driver to be in control when they back up with a backup camera for actually a trailer. So that takes all that challenge out. So that's one of them.
Now wait, let's get into a little bit more of this. The driver's got other controls than the steering wheel to make sure that the trailer hitch on the back of the truck matches up with the
knob that the driver has to activate, and so there's a backup camera, and he can actually much more precisely back up that trailer and have actually full vision of where that trailer goes. So you're much quicker on the lake with your boat, and it's less, excitement to really get that boat into the water if you're towing a boat.
So you don't need somebody behind you saying,
Correct.
come this way,
Correct.
come that
Exactly.
way. You just do it with the camera and the little knob.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Very interesting.
Absolutely.
And Magna came up with that, huh?
Well, we came up with it, but Magna has been really key to bring that technology to life on that F-150.
Uh-huh.
The other cool thing is actually the Gorilla Glass. So, by the way, the F-150, if our consumers want to experience here on the stand, we have a full demonstration. You're sitting in the truck, and you can actually simulate the backup process. So that's really cool.
So you're going to have long lines when the public gets here to try that.
Hopefully. It's a cool feature. And the other thing that we're showing here is what we call Gorilla Glass. The all-new GT has actually it's a performance vehicle. It is actually our test bed for a number of key innovations. Carbon fiber had been talked about, but Gorilla Glass is a much lighter but much stronger glass, and we have a little booth here where a snowball is being shot at you with 50 miles an hour when you're standing behind that glass and nothing happens. So that's something that we've done with a supplier more upstream in the process, Corning, normally a tier 2, tier 3 supplier, but we teamed up with them, and that cool innovation actually has come out of that process.
Of course, anybody with a smartphone knows that typically it's Gorilla Glass that is the screen of the smartphone. So it's pretty durable. I mean, don't throw it on the floor, but it's amazingly durable.
Well, you can take a crack, literally, no pun intended, you can take a crack at it and try to break it at the stand. It's impossible.
So on the GT, the application is the windshield then?
The windshield and actually the cover over the engine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
The cover over the engine I could understand. That's not as exposed to the elements as it were, but the windshield, that's a big step to put Gorilla Glass in the windshield of the car.
Oh, absolutely. But it's also, I think, very similar to what we've seen from some of the steel suppliers. As more lighter weight materials are being delivered and developed, a lot of people have been talking about polycarbonate when it comes to windshields, basically a plastic material.
Right.
And the glass industry fought back. And with Corning, they came up with a much lighter, much more resistant glass.
That's a key element that you're pointing out too, because as you get to light weighting, glass is heavy. So if you can reduce the weight of the glass, you're making significant percentage reductions in weight.
Absolutely, and that's so critical today.
What's changed? Because, before the big recession and all, there was a lot of criticism that the Detroit automakers maybe didn't reward their suppliers that well, and the word that I got is suppliers were reluctant to bring their latest and greatest technology to a company like Ford and some of the others in town here. What have you changed that you're getting this kind of innovation going with the supply community?
We have really worked hard in developing our relationship with our suppliers. We can say today that we're leading amongst the domestic automakers. Suppliers are really seeing Ford as a customer of choice because not only do we allow them to share with us their technology, they also gain scale over time. Think about the EcoBoost engines. We were not the first with that technology. When you think about the injection system, but we were able to bring that, at a scale of 5 million engines. So that new technology really allowed them to, drive scale into their business.
5 million, that's scale. Okay, but scale's got to be more than just part of the answer. Again, why will suppliers, aside from just the scale aspect, because there's other automakers with a lot of scale too, why would they bring it to Ford?
One of the key elements that we found in talking to our suppliers is just simply trust. Like in any other relationship, you do more for the people that you trust, and we really have worked hard on earning that trust from our suppliers. That's key.
That's key. The other thing that's been the big message here at the Ford display at the Detroit Auto Show, aside from innovation, is mobility. Mark Fields, Bill Ford, they keep talking about Ford is going to be transitioning from not just a car company anymore, but a car company and a mobility company. How does purchasing play in that role?
Yeah, it's interesting because that will also mean that we have to look at this a little bit differently. I think Mark has called it 1 foot in today and 1 foot in tomorrow. So we're actually working with our traditional suppliers on some of the cool innovations that I just described, and also some of the innovations when it comes to smart mobility. But we will also in future work with suppliers that we actually have not been dealing with today. And that may also mean that we have to actually work with them differently than we work with our traditional supply base. But I think it's really a cool time to be in the auto industry.
It is, because the traditional auto industry, very capital intensive. You had to very carefully bring a product to market, make sure there would be no problems with it from, an accident or a liability standpoint. But when you get into this new technology, especially mobility, it's Silicon Valley paced. Is that changing how you're dealing with these suppliers?
For sure, what you mentioned in terms of the precision and the care that we take to bring, high quality parts to market, that won't change. That will never change. That is just a given in today's market. That is what we stand for. But the clock speed at which we're going to see change in the future is definitely going to, be very, very different. particularly for these new smart mobility solutions that may not just be hardware on a vehicle, but actually solutions that make the life of our customers better.
So how do you change your processes to increase your clock speed?
Well, this is something that we're actually discussing right now because it's a new field for us. We have to make sure that we can be as responsive as we can. You are aware that we opened a significant office in Silicon Valley to actually learn from those companies that operate at a different clock speed, and also learn, about these new supplier partnerships that we're going to enter and how we can actually respond to the consumer needs much more quickly.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I visited the Ford R&D operations in Palo Alto, and what a place. I mean, it's like an incubation room of, I shouldn't say room, it's a building, obviously, with all different kinds of projects that are going on. And I've got to believe then that purchasing's got to keep its hand on the pulse of what's coming out of that lab as well.
Absolutely. And it's going to be changing also the role of the buyer of the future. And so that is going to be a very interesting period for us to look at different skill sets, look at also different elements that we need to consider when we talk about sourcing of the future. We're very good at what we do today, and we want to be absolutely leading in that area as well as we go into the future.
Well, I got to tell you, as somebody who's not at a car company but loves to watch what they're doing, it's going to be fascinating to see Ford put that one foot into the future and transition into more of a mobility company. It's going to be great.
We're all pumped up.
Great. Birgit, Behrendt, thanks so much for taking the time to stop by and bring us up to speed with what Ford purchasing is doing as pertains to this innovation and mobility move that's taking place.
John, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
That's great. We'll be back in just a moment. We're going to take a break now. We're going to show you a few other things. We've got another panel coming back. In fact, we're going to be talking all about autonomy. Don't go away. We'll be back right after this.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Well, here, I'm going to do this.
Okay, so the government crash tested the F-150, the one with the high-strength military-grade aluminum alloy body, bolted to a high-strength steel frame, and guess what? It made the strongest statement any truck can make. It pulled a 5-star safety rating on all sides for every cab configuration. Because when they say military-grade, they mean battle-tested. This is the Ford F-150, and every other truck is history.
Joining me right now is Doug Patton with Denso, and boy is he with Denso. He's the Executive Vice President of Engineering, he's the Chief Technology Officer, and he's also a Senior Director with the company. And Doug, it's great to have you here in the studio.
Well, thank you, John.
I know that autonomous cars is a big hot button with you, but we were talking earlier and you were saying everyone's focused on autonomy, but it's really just the tip of the iceberg. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think autonomy is what everybody hears about and what everybody thinks personally about, but it's more about mobility, right? It's more about connectivity. I mean, think about connectivity with your phone, but what about with your transportation device? And not even your car, your transportation device. How do you get around? How do you get the vehicle or the transportation device to you? How do you get it to where you want to go? Many, many things are going to change in our industry in maybe not that distant of the future, but I think I like to talk about autonomous drive because that's where the technology is right now, right? And that's where the cool things are happening. And I think that's where people are seeing first. You know, and we talked also about this, about the struggle between what's the definition of autonomous drive, right? And I think, and I've said this before, that I think Google has done us a service in the auto industry by getting us moving faster and recognizing we have to go. But they sort of done a disservice by making it seem so easy and making it seem like autonomous drive, my definition, sleeping in the back seat. That's what Google sort of portrays. But maybe that's not where we're going yet. I think there's some time before we get there.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's a decade or out. Where you and I can walk into a showroom and buy a car where we can sleep in the back seat. But to your point, there's going to be steps that take us there. Denso's working on some of those technologies. For example, head-up display I know is a hot button with you right now. Talk about what you're doing there.
Right. Well, heads-up display is going to become a really important piece because it's now going to be part of the safety device, if you will, understanding the information. what you need, when you need, where you need it at the right time, right? That's right in front of you. That's when your eyes can be on the road. So those kind of pieces for this driver in and out of the loop phase of autonomous drive are going to be so important. A driver status monitor, where are you facing, right? Car can't give you your control back to you if you're not looking on the road, right? That would even be the worst thing to happen. And then some kind of HMI manager, how to sort through that information, get down to exactly what you need to know when you need to know it, right? And then it all gets displayed on the heads-up display. So all of these sort of pieces have to all come together in some kind of integrated system to make it work for the consumer.
And then we're talking about the car and interaction with the driver and all that. I know that Denso is looking into smart cities too. What do you mean by that?
Well, Denso's been involved in the V2X, or vehicle-to-vehicle, vehicle infrastructure communication issues for the last 10 years. And we see that as just one step as to the cities being more connected. Remember what I talked about transportation mobility changing? Well, that connectivity in the cities is going to be an important piece for it. We're working on several operations around the world in different cities, but we're also looking to try to do something here in North America to have that kind of connectivity and bring the consumer and the vehicle and the marketplace all together.
In fact, one thing that you were telling me about is, you know, we've talked V to X, V to I, V to V. You told me a new one, V to P, vehicle to person. Talk about that briefly.
Well, you know, there's all this discussion about the frequency and the bandwidth, right, and who should own it. Does it belong to the automotive or others? Well, I contend that if you think about not just the safety aspects of it from the vehicle to even to the infrastructure, but to the cell phone. How many people have cell phones? And if the vehicle would know where the cell phone was, you could tell them and reduce another. What did you told me, like 5,000 accidents a year?
5,000 pedestrian fatalities just in the United States.
So, and then I'd like to even take it the next level. What about V2C, vehicle to child, right? Now, how young do kids have cell phones? Well, pretty young these days, okay? and if you could know where the children were when you're driving around, another, you know, big safety advantage of another place to just build on the technology that's sort of already there. There's sort of already an infrastructure with the phones. So it's not like we're going to change technologies, or we're not looking at 5G or 6G. We're looking at something that's already there. So has a lot of opportunity, I think.
I love when you're talking about this technology that's already there and how we can find new applications for it. A very bright future right around the corner. Doug Patton, thanks so much for stopping by and telling us a little bit of, sharing a little bit of the thinking that's going on inside of Denso.
All right, thank you, John.
Welcome back to the Autoline Supplier Symposium, coming to you from the floor of the Detroit Auto Show, what they also call the North American International Auto Show. As you'll see, it's the industry days here. These are the people who work in the industry that are down at the show today and tomorrow. The prior 2 days were all the media who were here, seeing the press conferences and the reveals of the car. But we're going to have a good panel discussion here on some of the technology that's showing up and going to show up in the years to come. Because today we're going to be talking about, on this panel, advanced driver assist programs and how that will also ultimately lead to automated driving, autonomous cars. And joining me for today's panel include Xavier Mosquet, he's with the Boston Consulting Group. Ian Simmons is the Vice President of Corporate R&D for Magna, the supplier company. And Jean-Francois Tarabbia is the Senior Vice President of R&D and Product Marketing at Valeo. And great to have all three of you here today talking about it. Xavier, why don't we start with you? There was some important news announced this week from NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, all involving this advanced driver assist systems. And what do you make of what, well, first, why don't you recount a little bit of what NHTSA talked about and what you think about their moves?
Well, I think, first of all, I would say it's a great news. And so far, it's interesting to see that, NHTSA and the US regulations around car safety was focused on passive safety. So i.e. the structure of the car.
Airbags and
seat belts. Exactly. And for the first time, I think it's a big shift Now passive safety, active safety, i.e. the ability to avoid accidents, become as important as being able to resist an accident.
Yeah, and what specifically did you like about that? The fact that they're now going to transfer their emphasis from passive to active safety?
Yeah, and there's a few critical features in what NHTSA is announcing. First of all, there's all these features about forward collision warning, i.e. when you go too close to the car in front of you, the car will help you signal and maybe start braking for you. There's also actually the push for blind spot detection, making sure that even if you don't see things on the rear view mirror, there's some lights that would signal the cars that are around your car. And the last thing was the help into adaptive front lighting, which is actually better beams to help you see better in the evening and through the night.
Ian, I got to imagine as a supplier, Magna, this is music to your ears, that NHTSA is going to be mandating the very kind of technology you want to be working on to bring to the market.
Yeah, obviously that improves safety and saves lives is good news for everybody, but for the industry, improve the take-up rate, allow us to accelerate technologies, get them into vehicles sooner. So for us, we were very pleased to hear the news.
And Jean-Francois, what's your reaction to it?
Yeah, on top of this, what is very important with autonomous driving is that it will really improve the mobility, and people who lost mobility will retrieve the mobility with autonomous driving. For instance, people aging, they are scared to park. For instance, parking is not easy when you cannot move the head, and so you get support to do it. People are not liking to drive by night, or that they are scared by the speed on the highway and things like this. So autonomous driving will help them to get back this mobility. And
that's a great point. This technology is going to help out an aging society. Everyone's been talking about full autonomy, but you're saying even before we get to full autonomy, we're going to start to see these benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that autonomous car will come on steps and not at once. It will not be disruptive. So we'll see automated cars in some phases. Like I said, parking. Who likes to park? And some people cannot park. And or in traffic jam. Nobody likes to drive in traffic jam. Highway when it's boring. So the system can help you and take over these boring phases, but leave you the very funny and interesting driving phases where the people like and want to drive, they can drive and they can enjoy it. But when it doesn't interest people to drive in some conditions, in those phases, then automated driving can do for them.
Yeah. You were going to add something there, Ian?
Yeah, I think the fact that you've obviously got the safety aspect, but also comfort and convenience, more features, more functions, things that make it more convenient for people. The more people get aware of what's in the market and these technologies coming, the more they're going to embrace for the future for all the reasons he said. Yeah.
So Xavier, bring us up to speed. What's the penetration of these ADAS, is what the industry jargon is, Advanced Driver Assist System.
Yeah.
Where are we now, and how do you see it moving over? Let's just talk about this decade so far.
So, I mean, the first thing I think we have to remember, I mean, we're talking about autonomous driving and what the future can be, but if I look at active safety and the features that are available today, we have about 6 million accidents in the US every year. They cost society, the US society, about $900 billion every year, 6% of GDP. The available features today could help avoid 30% of those accidents.
Today's technology,
not autonomous driving, but today's active safety can help us save 2 million accidents and about 10,000 lives in the market today. And the thing is, in front of this opportunity, the penetration is a few percent. If you look at the different active safety features, the biggest one has 7% penetration, the lowest one has 0.2% penetration, and it's increasing very slowly. And therefore, all what was discussed here about the education, the push from NHTSA for, raising the bar for 5-star rating. Potentially, I'm even thinking about, government incentives are critical, because that's the way to get from a few percent penetration to 40-50% penetration and save all these lives with today's technology.
Some of the talk in the industry has been, how about the insurance companies giving discounts for this? Because clearly if you're reducing accidents, preventing injuries, potentially 10,000 fatalities, you would think that the insurance industry should be helping this happen as well.
Yes. And they are clearly interested. I mean, they're already actually giving some discounts for some features. I mean, for instance, it's a number of insurance companies are giving discounts for better pedestrian protection, and if you get those features, you'll get a cheaper price. Now, obviously, the insurance companies, are cautious about how much discount they give because they want to make sure that they get the value back. But for sure, they will be, I think, a critical player in getting the increased penetration of those features going forward.
And I think it's a case, to your point, it's not obvious that you're getting a benefit if you purchase a car with these features. But over time, as the volumes increase for these features, the pricing is coming down. We've seen that with these features ever since the ADAS type features came in. And the more we can get them in, the more lives we save, the cost will go down. But it needs to be obvious to the buyer the benefit he's getting, not only in safety and comfort and convenience, but also these potentially saving funds and money on his insurance.
Ian, how do you make the customer aware of that? Because a lot of this safety equipment they may not experience until they're about to have an accident. And if some drivers never ever have an accident, so how do you perceive that there's value in the car if you never experience it?
Well, I think I've just recently purchased a vehicle, gone through the dealer experience, and they're actually portraying the benefits positively in terms of these active safety systems. So the word's beginning to get out. Obviously, people like Magna and Valeo, when we go to trade shows and even CS and others, we promote it to the general public that these systems and features are coming. So I think it's beginning to happen, but it just needs to gain momentum.
Jean-Francois, how do we do this? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think also for the safety, there is a second effect along the lifetime, because with the autonomous driving, we will change a little bit the way we use the car. So driverless taxi and car sharing will make the car much more used than they are today. Today, on average, a car stays at the parking 90% of the time. So with car sharing, with this kind of different business, the car will be much more used. And the consequence is that they will have a shorter lifetime. And the consequence is that they will have a park with much modern cars with much more safety features, and this will increase significantly also the safety.
That's an excellent point. Elaborate a little bit more. Why will cars not last as long? Why will we get technology into them sooner?
Yeah, if you have a car and today you drive to your office and you leave your car 8 or 10 hours on the parking and you take it back to go home. So in the meantime, somebody could use it. It would reduce your cost of ownership, and it will be used because you have the telematic and the connectivity to send the key through a smartphone and not giving the keys. But also the car could be used to go somewhere and come back by alone, and this all the day long, and be used much more frequently than it is today.
Yeah,
and I think you're more inclined to do that if you've got full active or semi-autonomous features. Then there's features there to protect the car if you're going to multi-function it, and it's going to be different users. So maybe more inclined to car share if your car can help protect the standard of driving you're going to see.
Ian, how does that change the way that you design or develop components, knowing that instead of the car being parked for 22 hours a day, and as you well know, in the US today, the average vehicle is 11 and a half years old, going forward, we might see that shrink completely to just 2-3 years old. So are you changing the way you set specifications, how you do your development?
Well, we do our development and specifications basically set by the customer, the OEM. I think our expectation is that the vehicle could be used more extensively and you wouldn't see any real degradation in its performance. But nevertheless, if you're going to see a vehicle like in a taxi mode as the general way that vehicles are going to be used in the future, clearly you have to look at durability cycles and perhaps address those in the future, because if everyone drove a car like you do a taxi, it's not going to last the way it does in your normal consumer product.
Yeah, but I think also you're right, and what we evolved is that the car with the Internet of Things, we can add information about the components used in the car and better know how they are used and how they are aging, and when is the time to replace them. So we can rethink how to build the car, the components in the car, and to adapt to the usages that we better know because we have the information how they are used, and secondly to anticipate the time they will break down and then optimize the cost to the usage.
Yeah, good point.
I'd like also to be a little careful there, because we talk a lot about the sharing economy, But I think if you look at the economics of sharing, it works well in very dense area. Take New York, for instance, where you use the car for 15 minutes and then you drop it for 3 hours. If you're in the Midwest or in LA, you use your car several hours a day, and therefore sharing becomes more difficult. So I think we will see still a vast portion of the market which will be standard car ownership, and then some portion of the market moving to shared cars.
Yeah. Also, Xavier, we're seeing this technology come in so fast. The regulators, the legislators, the courts are way behind this technological curve. How do you think this is going to be overcome?
Well, so I think the safety benefits of active safety, as we said, and then autonomous driving are huge. Ideally, we believe that autonomous driving could reduce the number of accidents by 90%. The cost of accidents today is $4,000 per car on the road today in the US. $4,000 per car. If you save 90% of that, you save $3,600 per year and per car. 10 years, $36,000. So the value for the society as a whole is huge. So by definition, the politicians, the regulators, the legislators will have to make it possible. So I think as the technology proves itself and matures, and it's not totally ready there, but as it becomes more ready, I think the regulator will have nothing else to do than to make it possible. And it's already starting, they're doing it.
Yeah, I think so. And the main issue really is when you're looking at either highly semi-autonomous or fully autonomous, is the liability issue. When you have an accident and the vehicle has to make a choice, where does the liability lay? And that's obviously something they're talking in detail about, but that's a real effect, particularly in North America. How do you handle that in the future?
It is an issue, clearly. But as Xavier is pointing out, if you can reduce injuries and fatalities by 90%, what are we waiting for?
That's where the incentive is, quite right. Let's get going.
Yeah.
And we've seen, by the way, already one or two OEMs already saying with the current set of features, they're going to take the responsibility. They've said that already, publicly.
Exactly right. Volvo, I can say that. Volvo has said by 2020 their goal is no one getting killed or even seriously injured in a Volvo. That's a gutsy statement.
It is. But if we reduce by 90% the cost of all that, then who insured, I think is less of an issue.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So Jean-Francois, we've seen this technological development come very quickly. The technology that you're all talking about is so important, and there's so much of a payoff for society. Can we get it faster? Is there any way of bringing it to market faster?
No, I think the industry is quite fast. So how we can do it faster? I think a lot of corporations with different industries and involving semiconductor industries and universities and so on. So for instance, we to make the car able to sense its environment correctly with the different sensors, to combine those sensors in an efficient way, to make them able to understand the situation. In any case, we need artificial intelligence, for instance. This is something we are picking up in the university and different industries to make it faster. So there is an acceleration on technology. I think now, as you said, the legal aspect must be also quick in order to support it.
Well, the payoff is too big to ignore, and we did hear this big step this week from NHTSA, so I think it's starting to happen. With that, I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap up this discussion. It's been fascinating for me. I want to thank the three of you, and get this right, Xavier Mosquet from the Boston Consulting Group, Ian Simmons from Magna, and Jean-Francois Tarabbia from Valeo. Thank you all.
Thank you
very much. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Stay tuned, folks. We're going to be coming back. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now. We got another great panel coming up. We're going to look at the financial end of what's going on in this industry from a supplier standpoint.
Stand out by design. Powerful by design.
Joining me right now is Bill Kazira. He is the president, the CEO, and the chairman of TI Automotive. And Bill, it's great to be in the studio with you again.
Thanks, John. It's great to be here.
2015 was a big year for TI Automotive. Give us some of the highlights.
Yes, it was. 2015 was a fantastic year for TI Automotive in many ways. One, the company has had just a wonderful year, and we're really excited to be able to celebrate an exciting year for the company from an overall business performance standpoint. But we're also excited because it is a year that we changed ownership, and Bain Capital, a very high quality private equity company, on June 30th of this year acquired nearly 100% of the shares of TI, and that was a very positive move for TI because now we have the opportunity to partner with a first-class private equity firm who is committed to the business, committed to the auto industry, to further grow and develop the business.
That's got to be pretty impressive for the company that a private equity group like Bain would go and buy the company from a bunch of other investors that you had.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, Bain had been, quite frankly, observing the company for some time and saw our solid, consistent performance and decided, you know, as they look at TI Automotive, which is a very global Tier 1 supplier of automotive fluid systems, that this was the right platform to acquire and to make another mark into the auto sector with a Tier 1 supplier. So we're really excited about that, and we've really enjoyed the last 6 months in our partnership with Bain Capital.
TI Automotive, of course, is a very global company. Much of the rest of the automotive world didn't do so well in 2015, the BRICS especially. So how did you manage to offset the downturn in the BRICS with growth elsewhere?
Yeah, well, fortunately at TI Automotive, our revenue is very distributed quite well regionally. So we have a very large business position not only in Europe but also in Asia Pacific, and in a big part of the Asia Pacific business is in China, where we enjoy very excellent businesses and relationships with not only the foreign producers in China but also the Chinese domestic producers. And while China was a little bit softer this year than we've had in prior years, fortunately sales were up in Europe and sales were very much up here in North America, which gave us the opportunity to compensate for the little bit of softening in China. And so because of our global footprint and because of our diversified customer portfolio, that really did not have any effect of any significance on TI. In fact, we'll celebrate a record 2015 for TI.
Good for you guys. There's a lot of technology coming into cars, especially technology that impacts, in your area, driven a lot by emissions, fuel economy, safety, and all that. How are you positioning TI to take care of these trends, especially when it comes to emissions?
Yeah, well, it's a very exciting time from a technology standpoint for the auto industry, and one of the things that I'm personally excited about now entering my 40th year in this great sector as a professional is that the automotive megatrends are really driving now some just wonderful vehicles and safer vehicles and vehicles that are much cleaner and better for our environment. Not only here in this country, but with the efforts going on globally to harmonize the requirements and regulations that will improve around the world. But for TI, those megatrends and regulations drive our zero-emission fuel tank technology and the other products that we have that improve fuel economy and reduce emissions down to the lowest near zero level. So that's exciting for TI, it's exciting for the industry, and there's a lot of stuff going on in that direction that will be best for the consumers and for the OEMs in the long run.
Bill Kazira, thanks so much for stopping by. Very interesting what you're doing with TI Automotive.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having us.
At Denso, we make, create, innovate. We're pushing the limits of technology. Creating a world where technology improves lives, saves lives. What does your future look like? Join our team of innovators.
If you want to make things that move better, just talk to one of our scientists. They'll show you a special glue we've developed that bonds metal to plastic. And that makes the things you're trying to move lighter. The less weight, the less energy. And what you save can be used for speed, for efficiency, or just for fun. This is the Human Element at work. Dow.
Welcome back to the Autoline Supplier Symposium, coming to you from the floor of the North American International Auto Show. This is the 4th year that we've been doing this at Autoline, where we work with different groups within the industry to get a panel together to discuss some of the topics that are really hot in the industry right now. We have to thank the FEI, the Financial Executives International, for working with us to put the panel together for the discussion we're about to get into, which includes Mark Rusch from the Proper Group International, Alicia Allen from TI Automotive, and Tom Kerns from Yanfeng Global. I want to thank all three of you for being on here. Mark, why don't I start with you? This industry, this auto industry is under a lot of pressure to produce better margins. Some supplier companies do, some do not, some automakers do, some do not. But when you look at other industries, and everyone always cites the tech industry or pharmaceutical, their margins are much better. Where do you see this whole financial pressure going on the industry to produce better margins?
Well, I think we're going to continue to see that, margin pressure, in most cases downward margin pressure, of course, because the OEMs have targets to meet, and it passes on down, of course, to the tier ones, and then the tier ones put that same pressure on to their supply base, whether they're tier 2 or something other than that. So I see that continuing to happen, and it's our job as suppliers to try to figure out how to better produce and manufacture, and whether it's going to cut cost or cut production time, or in the case of like tooling, to build better tooling that will make parts that will be more, they'll fit better, they'll have better geometry, reduce the number of parts by combining them together, and I think that's where a lot of that's going to continue to come from.
So literally designing the product from a way that may not need as much capital investment to produce better margins?
No question about that, yes. Yeah.
Alicia, how do you see it?
Well, to echo what Mark says, certainly I expect to see the similar pressure on the margins downward. The same time that puts the pressure on not only the tier ones, everyone in the supply base to not only make investments in capital that'll ultimately reduce costs, but spend a lot of time, a lot of effort on the upfront engineering to ensure that you don't have a lot of changes. Those can be costly, as well as undertake continuous improvement activities. It's never ending. You're looking for ways to save costs, whether it's labor, the procurement groups are relentless in trying to get savings on that end from the supply base, right? So we're kind of all feeling that pressure.
And I imagine that scale plays a big role in that too. If you're not going to go global, it's going to be awfully hard to compete.
That's true. The automakers, and rightfully so, are looking for global platforms. It's more efficient from a cost perspective for them, engineering and all of that. And so the supply base has to follow. And so trying to be nimble and stay next door to your customer is absolutely an issue we're seeing in the supply industry to keep up with.
And Tom, it's so interesting, you're with Yanfeng, which is become overnight such a major interior supplier because, of course, it acquired that from JCI, and that plays right into what we were just talking about with Alicia, of getting scale.
Absolutely. Yanfeng is a joint venture of Johnson Controls and Yanfeng. We're now Yanfeng Global Automotive Interiors. It's a very global company. We've got scope all around the world. It's really with the goal of being able to service our customers on a global basis, with this drive towards global platforms and being able to supply parts wherever the customer manufactures those platforms, really have the capability to do that now.
It's so interesting to see that some companies are getting out of the automotive business altogether or selling off operations. And here's Yanfeng saying, hey, we'd love to buy this stuff. What does the company see differently, or what's driving it to go and buy things when others are looking to exit the business?
Yeah, it's part of it is the difference in the market. You know, if we kind of turn back the clock 10 years ago, and we were talking about things like peak oil and the fact that production in China might exceed production in the U.S. by 2020. Well, you know, with the onset of the global financial crisis, that changed very quickly, right? We saw collapse in the price of commodities, particularly in oil, and production, you know, also in China exceeded that in the U.S. in 2009 by a significant margin. So it's a very different situation than what was envisioned, and you know, I think the company looks towards the opportunities in that business, gaining technology, scope, scale, and we're going to see changes, you know, because China now is the largest market in the world. There's demand there for technologies that we really don't need here in the U.S., right? We're a very large country, very spacious. Fuel economy is not a major concern when gas prices fall to $2 a gallon.
Yeah.
But you know, you go to some place like Shanghai, or any of the major cities in China, electric drivetrains are a priority, and I think that demand there is going to draw new technology, and whether it's serviced by, you know, the local or global suppliers, it's going to come up from there. So,
I imagine, being on the financial end of things, you all read Sergio Marchionne's from FCA, his Confessions of a Capital Junkie, and I'm just wondering here, Mark, what your reaction is, because it's true, there is a lot of duplication of effort in the automotive industry, and a lot of capital that goes into a lot of duplication. What's your takeaway, especially what should the supplier industry be reading into that?
I think, you know, from a capital standpoint, the markets have freed up significantly over the past 3 to 5 years. You look back in the recession when capital markets dried up, access to capital dried up, particularly for small and medium-sized companies. So things have changed dramatically over the last 3 to 5 years, but yet it's still vitally important to make sure that you have the proper allocation of capital, that you're acquiring it from the right resources so your capital costs aren't beyond what typical market costs are, and also that when you deploy your capital that you're getting the best return. So whether you're an FCA or you're a Yanfeng or you're someone like Proper Group International, those financial metrics are always important no matter what level you're at and what level of scale. So we're always looking to achieve the best returns that we can, and it's our job as you know, the financial leaders of our organizations, you know, to make sure that we get the information out to everybody and that we monitor that kind of return on investment.
Mm-hmm. Alicia, same thing. You know, what's your takeaway from what Sergio was talking about? He was talking about FCA, of course, but I think it applies to the entire industry.
You know, it does. And, you know, I think about it again from the supply base and the globalization, right? So, and in particular North America, where we've kind of hit capacity again, right? Which is, you know, a terrible problem to have, right? The access to the capital markets comes at a fantastic time to be able to, you know, add new facilities, add new, you know, equipment into the mix, as well as expand, you know, abroad as our customers are. So.
And same thing, Tom. What's your takeaway from that paper got so much coverage, certainly on Wall Street?
Sure. Yeah, I think the industry coming out of the global financial crisis was in the doghouse for a period of time. You know, after we went through OE and supplier bankruptcies, and then, you know, as the market started to loosen up, there really was kind of a lack of demand for capital, because suppliers had been burned in the mid-2000s and gone through, you know, a lot of restructuring and downsized their capacity. So they were really in a position to maximize the utilization of their existing footprint, and there wasn't a lot of new shovel in the ground capacity expansion going on. And I think just now, certainly in supply base, just now we're getting to that juncture where suppliers are, running flat out, certainly here in North America, and having to explore, when and how to add to that capacity. So it's, the implications in the financial markets are also there as well. So we had that period where there was little availability, there was an inward focus and on capital generation, and followed that there was a period where there wasn't a lot of capital demand, and yet the liquidity was there in the financial markets. We saw pricing compression, on the lending, and then we got to a juncture where it was well balanced. Even with the low interest rates, I wouldn't say that the lending is lax as it may have been, in the late 90s by any measure. And just recently, we're seeing some cracks in the foundation out there. One of the kind of leading indicators is the high yield market, and as they say, it's predicted 4 out of the last 2 recessions. We saw in the last half of last year, yields in the high yield market go from 6% to 9%, which really makes it an unattractive avenue for financing.
I think the real wild card that's coming up is what's happening with oil. That I think if we all took a step back to 1 or 2 years ago, we never would have even talked about $30, much less $20 a barrel. So, the Fed has been out with QE1 and QE2. There have been all these great initiatives to pump liquidity in the market, and then along comes oil at $30 and below a barrel. Now we're shipping oil to Europe. The first shipment just left this week. So, that wild card, I certainly am not smart enough to know how that's going to play out and impact the automotive industry, much less the capital markets. And
but you've got to see it as a good thing for the automotive industry, I would think.
I would think so. I mean, look what's happening to light vehicle sales and all the new segments that are coming out. And, I think a lot of that's driven by greater access to capital. People feel flush with money in their pockets.
At least in the U.S. market.
At least in the U.S. market, for sure. Yeah.
Alicia, what do you think? As you look out, how's this going to impact the industry going forward?
I'm looking at my crystal ball here, right? I think certainly the oil prices, if we can keep them low, are going to be fantastic for the industry, particularly here in North America. And as you look around on the floor today, right, what do you see? You see the trucks, you see the SUVs, they're back. That's what the market's asking for, fantastic cars on the road. But, people are feeling more financially secure as well. They're not feeling like they have these big, things hanging over them in terms of driving to work and how much is that going to cost. So, they're ready to go out and buy the bigger ticket items, which is, what we're selling, right?
So does that change your financial outlook for when you start doing your planning at TI Automotive? That, oh yeah, these oil prices, we got to factor that in.
We're quite cautious on it, I'll say that.
Because it's been so volatile in the past?
Certainly, yeah. And I think, what you saw, years back in general in the industry in terms of, being very bullish. You look past the 08, 09 time frame, all companies, I think, are approaching the finances quite differently now, and ensuring they're a little more shored up for that rainy day, ensuring that the minor tweaks in volume aren't going to be disastrous. Where certainly 08 and 09 were by no means minor tweaks in volume, but I think we're more cautious today than we were, say, 10 years ago.
That's a great point. I do see that. In years past, after coming out of a recession, they always said this town got fat, dumb, and happy, went back to all the bad habits. I don't see that this time. And you've hit on a key word there, caution. I still see a lot of companies here happy about the way things are going, but certainly paying down debt, getting themselves in a better financial position.
Yeah, I think so, and using the money a little more wisely in terms of back to investing in advanced engineering and things like that, and not that we weren't certainly in the past, but looking more towards the future. We're excited about the future, but again with a bit of caution, not by any means let the good times roll, because we got a little burnt last time.
Tom, you agree with that? There's still caution there, even though we just had an all-time record year and so many companies are reporting record profits.
Absolutely. I think it kind of echoes 1998 scenario where we saw some international financial crisis, Asian currency crisis, Russian debt crisis, and the price of oil dropped to some $12 a barrel or less. And that acts as a shot in the arm in the developed markets, in the short term, but it's also a warning sign for some things happening elsewhere in the economy. So I think that dictates caution on the part of the industry.
And Mark, we know because there is volatility in the energy market, even though it's great from a consumer standpoint right now, I got to believe that you still got to keep your powder dry. It could go up at some point.
Well, it creates a lot of uncertainty in the market, and so whether you may have plans to expand in a particular area, and you've really got to focus on what the demand curve is going to look like. Your crystal ball and our crystal ball may be a little bit different, of course. And so you do your best, you make your best efforts in terms of projecting where you need to go, where you want to take your organization. And so I think that's the same whether it's at Yanfeng or TI or at Proper Group. We're at different scale, but we all look at the same thing. Where are we taking the organization? How can we as financial experts provide the information and some of the analysis on the external markets like oil or interest rates or exchange rates, which is another big factor. You look at Canada right now, and I never would have thought that the exchange rate would have moved this quickly. And you see what China's doing and the effort to prop up the value of the dollar in China, so the yuan. So you have to really try to be on your game as much as you can.
It's amazing. I don't envy you guys because there is so many external factors that you have no control over. You got to keep on track of everything that's going on there. Very interesting. Well, look, I want to thank all three of you for having come by. We're going to have to wrap up this panel discussion, but Mark Rusch from the Proper Group International, Alicia Allen from TI Automotive, Tom Kerns from Yanfeng Global, thank you all for coming here and sharing your thoughts on the Autoline Supplier.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for
Thank you,
having
John.
us,
That's
great.
John.
Yeah.
We're going to take another break here. We're going to be back. We've got another panel to go. Don't go away. You're going to enjoy what we've got coming. I'm joined right now by Mansour Mirdamadi. He's the chief engineer of Dow Automotive Systems. Great to have the chance to talk with you, Mansour.
Thank you so much.
Most people in the industry know Dow as a supplier of materials, but you do a lot more than that. You do a whole lot of computer modeling. Explain a little bit about what you're doing for your customers.
Absolutely, John. For one, thank you for having me on this show and providing this opportunity. We utilize computer simulation tools to help our customers design and engineer with our products in the automotive industry. We place a very heavy importance on that topic because we are aware that virtual simulation tools are staying here for a long time. They're going to be the replacement eventually for not having to test vehicles. And we feel the better we are in position to provide reliable, with high confidence on how our materials need to be represented in the different simulation tools, the better ability that we have to impact our customers from a product optimization and selection point of view.
Mansour, when your customers come to you and say, hey, we're thinking of using some of Dow's foams or its structural adhesives on this application, what do they get? Walk us through a little bit of the kind of computer simulation you'll do for them.
Sure. What they get is essentially an introduction with the different types of product families that may be available in those two spaces that you described. We actually then go about showcasing some of the work that we have done internally to identify what solutions are possible with our products, whether they're foams or structural foams or bait-to-mate adhesives, and then try to determine what is the best path of evaluations for their specific needs. And sometimes those paths are better suited to be done experimentally. Sometimes those paths could be better suited to be done through simulation tools. And also there are many cases where you have to just marry the two together to not only gain the confidence of our customers in terms of our simulation techniques, but also to identify the appropriate solutions, because not everything today can be done and addressed through simulation techniques.
What other applications besides the foams and the structural adhesives? What are some of the next things that we might be on the lookout for coming down the road?
So the adhesive bonding solutions for the similar material is really the one of the key issues.
Combining aluminum and steel together?
Yeah. Absolutely. And now with the introduction and evaluations of the carbon fiber composites and different composite material, that the importance of understanding how you properly engineer with those products in mind, with the understanding of the differences in how they behave from a mechanical point of view, how they behave from a thermal point of view, is all very, very important. So it really escalates the need of the simulation tools to be used at the very early stage even more. We are also investing heavily in the simulation techniques associated with composite materials, specifically the carbon fiber composites. Again, with all the same main theme about increasing their confidence with our customers and reducing the product development time, and then really positioning the right product for the application that is intended for.
Well, Mansour, it's very interesting for me to learn that Dow Automotive does more than just supply materials, but helps the automakers and suppliers engineer these things.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you for taking the time to come in and talk with me today. Very interesting.
Thank you so much for having me.
We've actually take what technology they use in the street cars and merge it into our race car.
Our pump is smaller, lighter weight, less current draw as the larger pump did last year.
They've been a great pump, and obviously their engineers here and they're a great asset to the team. We're able to drop amps and weight in the fuel system.
Joining me right now is Michael Martini. He's the president of the Original Equipment Division at Bridgestone Americas. Mike, it's always great to have you here in the studio.
It's always fabulous to be here.
Well, good. Let's get off to a fabulous start, because I know one of the new products that you guys have brought out is called Drive Guard. Explain that.
You know, run flat technology, it's been around. We really kind of introduced it in 1987 on the Porsche, a long time ago. But, we're now for the first time offering really run flat technology for the person that the car wasn't originally designed for run flats.
So they can come in when they need to get a new set of tires and get run flat tires and never have a problem with a flat again.
Yeah, and that's the whole key. About 25% of the consumers out there are very safety oriented. So, we're coming out with a line of tires that features run flat for that person that might have a minivan or an SUV, or whoever that safety conscious person is, maybe your mom or whatever, that if they do get a nail or something, then instead of the tire going down and have to pull right there on the side of the road, this tire offers them to go another 50 miles, get to a place they feel comfortable with, maybe having somebody either help them or go to a store to have it handled. It's a great safety feature, and the premium isn't a lot. And so, yeah, it's a little bit more than a conventional tire, but not much. And so, there's a lot of consumers out there in our research, and we've been selling these for about a year now, that are buying the heck out of them.
That's pretty impressive, because a lot of people who just go in to get a new set of tires for their car, just give me the cheapest stuff you've got.
Right.
They're saying they'll pay extra to get these.
Right, and as long as you make it reasonable, and for that consumer that's looking for that added advantage, this comes without compromise. So the tire's still great for fuel economy, still going to get great wear. Some of the knock on the very early run flat tires that sometimes wear wasn't quite as good as what the consumer actually wanted. That's all been taken care of, and the harsh ride and things like that were part of that whole first generation run flats. With these third and fourth generation run flats, that's a thing of the past. Harshness is not an issue. In fact, most people that to be honest with you. All people that aren't in a car like we are and really can evaluate it can never notice the difference between a conventional tire and a run-flat tire for harshness.
Where are tires going technologically? You know, we're seeing huge emphasis on improving fuel efficiency, lightweighting, bringing a whole lot more technology into the vehicle. I got to believe the tire is going to play a role in all of that.
You know that's the case. Every part on the car has got to go through that technology revolution. How cool is it to be in this industry right now? I mean, it's just like being back in the early 1900s. This explosion of technology. And certainly tires represent that same thing. Just like you said, we've got to be lightweight. We've got a half-weight concept where we're going to take half the weight out of the tire.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, but with no compromises. You can't compromise safety, you know, endurance, all that wear. So we've got that in the next 5 years, you'll see more and more of that actually come out in the new cars that are coming to market. And then, you know, we always talk about autonomous vehicles. Well, does the tire play a role there or not? You know, and it actually does. You know, if you're driving down the road and you get that nail or something, you know, and there's not a person sitting in front of the wheel or not, the tire kind of has to report into the vehicle, hey, you know, I'm still healthy, keep driving. So we've got to develop all those algorithms that'll say, you know, oh, geez, the temperature is going up. You know, maybe the pressure's still okay, but the temperature's going up, meaning maybe it's got a damage somewhere else in the tire, etc. So, you know, the Internet of Everything even includes the tire segment.
I know one other thing that you're particularly keen on is that Bridgestone is all about tires. You're not getting off track on other things. Talk a little bit about your messaging in that.
You know, that for us, it's really important. You know, I mean, you see so much, you know, the conglomerates coming back. You know, everybody's getting into every piece of, you know, the autonomous vehicle, etc. You know, and that could be really great for a lot of suppliers, but we really want to focus really on our product being the best. We are the biggest. We'd like to think we're the best. We want to stay there. And as we move forward, I think, you know, having that singular focus on tires, not only for OE, but in the replacement market, in the service that we're going to bring to that consumer, who we like to call the boss, you know, we'll want to continue to put our products on their vehicles.
Michael Martini, always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks for stopping by in the studio today.
Thanks so much, John.
Welcome back to the Autoline Supplier Symposium. You know, a lot of people are not aware in this auto industry that we're almost at a critical shortage right now of skilled tradespeople. And I'm telling you, it's not very well known except amongst the people who are really working on this issue. And I've got two of them here with me right now. Scott Palmer is with the Macomb Intermediate School District. Very important part of the education. We're going to get into that. Also joining us is Bob Tiseo from the UAW Skilled Trades End. And Bob, thanks for joining us. And Scott, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Scott, set the stage right now. I'm calling it that we're almost at a crisis level. How do you see it?
I would say almost is understating the problem. You know, everything we hear in the conversations we have, Deloitte put out a study that I just read that talks about in the next 10 years, we're talking about 350,000 skilled trades type manufacturing jobs, and if we continue with the amount of young people or people in general going into these fields, we're going to be 200,000 short, and that's just in this country.
And these are good paying jobs.
They are, absolutely.
So Bob, tell us what you're doing with Ford and UAW, because I know you got a pretty aggressive program getting skilled trades people trained, and yet there's still a shortage.
Yeah, you know, we've started some programs under our Vice President, Jimmy Settles. We do a high school mentoring program where we actually travel to schools on career day. We give an overview of all the skilled trades, a little bit of what they do. how a 4-year apprenticeship works, how you may get into one, and we also follow that up with showing them how they can look through web search to join an apprenticeship or get more information on one. And that's just one of the programs that we do. So.
And there's a training program, UAW Ford, right now for people already there, not just students.
Oh, internally we have a great apprenticeship program. It's actually the 75th anniversary this year of our apprenticeship program. We just negotiated brand new language on how we're going to select from our internal people that work in our production lines. And we've increased the number of people that we're going to start putting on the program because of the shortage that we already talked about a little bit. We're going to try to build our journeyman skilled tradespeople instead of looking for them from the outside, because as we're at a shortage, we actually can't find them. You know, they're not out there to hire.
Why is that, Bob? I mean, because if I understand this right, when you get in the program, you get paid, you're working, at the same time you learn. I think it's a 4-year program,
Yep,
right?
4 years.
And then I heard when you graduate, as it were, at the end, you start at $32 an hour, and that doesn't include benefits even.
Yeah, it's a great career path. It's really a wonderful job for someone to be able to earn a good living and take care of their family. But I think if you take a look a few years back when the country was in a financial crisis, when construction stops and industry slows, you know, these jobs also aren't there. So the same folks have been working in them jobs for many years. I think there's a little bit of an aging workforce, and now everything is going so fast, you know, and everything and technology is changing even faster too. We're struggling to keep up with the jobs because the training program takes a little bit.
Yeah. Scott, talk about it from the student side, because even though Ford is still trying to get people into the program, how do we get students even interested in trying to pursue a career like that?
Yeah, you know, we really are trying to do a really good job of recreating the high school experience and transforming it from the traditional industrial model that we've known for 100 plus years to more of an integrated model where we can take these, whether it be skilled trades or business or health sciences, but any of those, we call them STEM type careers, and then take the English, math, science, and social studies and integrate those. And in fact, Ford Next Generation Learning is one entity that's helping schools do that around the country. So it's right back to the blue oval again.
Isn't part of the problem, though, that in this country we've had this mentality that everyone has to go to college? I went to college, I hope as many people can go as possible, but the reality is most people are not going to go, and it seems to me that our education system has kind of ignored the vocational trades.
Absolutely, and I think we talk about having more and more people go to a post-secondary experience. What we're just starting to track is the number that complete in a timely fashion and the amount of debt that's going along with having to complete as the cost of post-secondary education goes up.
Yeah. You're going to say that?
If I may jump on the same track, I think the educational system, we're so focused on sending people to college, and as the educational system is cut back, you know, they're not offering shop class or any trade-related prep, so the students aren't exposed to this. And I think that's why you're seeing an increase in programs of trying to expose kids to the skilled trades, because it's a great alternative career path to college. You know, another one of our programs that we use, we do a summer program. It's 5 weeks long. We bring 10 students into our apprentice training center, and we expose them to, you know, electrical work, millwright work, plumber, pipe fitter work, tool making, welding, and it's a hands-on program. So they'll wire a circuit and a switch, they'll run a lathe and a CNC, basic welding. They get a chance to cut and thread pipe, and while they're doing that, they actually build some things that they take home. They build their own lamp, a sprinkler, some bookends, and it's just a great program, and it exposes them not only to the trades, but to get to work with their hands too, and see what they think of it.
Right. I mean, we look, John, I pulled the data from our state Career Tech Ed. Last year, we only have 117 programs around the state of Michigan in manufacturing, 5,000 student enrollees. So when you talk about 100,000 plus students in Career Tech Ed in the state of Michigan, only 5,000 are being steered into the manufacturing pathway.
Now, Macomb is probably the most aggressive at trying to turn that around.
Very much so.
Let the audience know some of the programs that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, in the schools and in our career centers, you know, we have welding and mechatronics and our machining and just as classes, and we are still able in several of our districts to keep those going. Not as many as we would like. So what we've been trying to do to augment that is things like Manufacturing Day, where we took just in Macomb County, about 1,800 students out into industry for a day and let them see that it's not dirty, dark, and dangerous. And this year we expanded it to Southeast Michigan, and we got upwards of 2,600 kids, upwards of 80 companies, and of that, in the United States, they had about 2,600 tours, and ours is in the top 3 nationally of the number of students that were supporting Manufacturing Day, and the 2 ahead of us were statewide initiatives, not a county or 2 counties or 3 counties, as in our case.
Bob, I got to imagine that kids that get exposed to this are pretty excited about it.
Well, they are, because they just don't know what they don't know. You know, for when you're a kid, somebody comes to your house to fix the plumbing or fix the electrical, you really don't know a whole lot about it. But when they get to put their hands on it and actually see how it works and see an end product to be proud of, it really opens their eyes to it. And like I said before, a wonderful career path that's not college, but you can really do something with yourself. And it not only is good wages and benefits, but it's also something you'll go home feeling good about what you did for the day.
It's rewarding work.
Yeah, because as long as there's buildings to build and bridges to build and technology keeps moving, we're going to need somebody to do all that work.
Cars to build too.
Absolutely.
One of the problems, we talked about the education system, which has a college-bound mentality, but it also starts in the home, right? I mean, if your parents tell you, you shouldn't go into the auto industry, all you're going to do is get laid off, how do you turn that mentality around?
I think you need to expose the kids to it at a younger age. I mean, I can tell you, I went through a 4-year apprenticeship. You know, I know what it's like to work with my hands, and that flows through at the home level too, right? You know, I actually have 2 daughters, but you know what? I say, come over here, grab that wrench, grab this. And I think when they're used to it and they know it's not harmful and it's something that they can do and it'll be okay, you know, I think that's the way to do it, is they need to be exposed to it at a younger age.
Scott, are you doing that? I mean, how young? How soon should we be starting this?
Yeah, you know, I mean, obviously the younger the better. And we're seeing some programs as early as elementary school around things like Lego robotics and those type of programs, Destination Imagination, that get things excited at an earlier age. Much of what I end up dealing with is at the high school level, where they truly get into that preparation for post-secondary careers. The apprenticeship piece is coming back. Macomb Community College, in partnership with Grand Rapids Community College and the ISD, just received a $3.9 million apprenticeship grant. It's called Michigan Apprenticeship Program Plus. And I mean, President Obama came himself to Macomb Community College before Christmas to award that and the others in our state, recognizing, and that's I think I hope I don't goof this up, 300 new apprentices in the next 5 years. And again, part of it is already in place with a Ford UAW training program that Macomb Community College is putting on, as well as other smaller entities that they're looking to have companies come in and sponsor these apprenticeships. So again, getting those young people to understand there's more than one way to the same end goal.
And how do you get their parents to understand so that they're encouraged at home as well?
Yeah, you know, it's funny, even with the Manufacturing Day, we did an evening event where we opened up the Macomb Expo Center, and we had business and industry all around the table. We had a panel discussion of young people in the trades, in manufacturing. We had shop owners there saying how great this is, and we opened it specifically for the influencers. We call the influencers, it could be a counselor, a principal, a teacher, a parent, a grandparent, a mentor, whoever are those people that are talking to our youth and educating them that it's not the same shop that it was 50 years ago.
But Bob, there's still a shortage, right? I mean, if I don't have the exact numbers, but I think at Ford you have something like 500 people enrolled right now, but 1,000 are going to retire.
Yeah, we actually have a little over 500 apprentices on course right now. We have about 8,300 total skilled trades, and probably 25% of those are eligible to retire. But with the language that we just negotiated our new contract, we're going to be very aggressive on indenturing these apprentices, and it's going to be based on a formula of age and years of service. So we're better going to be able to diagnose when we know they're going to leave. You know, we have an average age and an average seniority when people retire, so we're putting it on a mathematical formula versus wait until they retire, and then not only do we lose the person, but we lose all the experience and the know-how as well.
Right. So how do you get more people interested in the program? I would think that they're going to pay you to learn this, and you're going to earn pretty good wages at the end. What's the holdup here?
You know, we have quite a bit of interest in our plants of people that want to get on the apprenticeship program, and we actually, when we identify plants that need trades and we're going to start doing a selection process, we actually do a recruiting tour where we send people in the plant to make sure that everybody in the plant knows what's going on, so we can give everybody the information and inform them what's going on so they may not miss an opportunity.
You know, what I'm getting from both of you guys is we just need to expose more people to all of this.
Absolutely.
And what kind of a career and a lifestyle that they can live with it as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Very interesting. Well, I'm glad we had this panel here. At this point, we're going to have to wrap this up. I want to thank the both of you, though. It's so good to see the Macomb Intermediate School District being so proactive in this. I've seen some of the work that you guys are doing. I'm really amazed by it. And Bob, thanks so much for sharing what the UAW is doing in this regard, too, because for the life of me, I just can't understand why we have a problem getting people into really good paying jobs.
Thank you.
But thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
With that, we're going to wrap up this part of today's Autoline Supplier Symposium. We're going to be back here tomorrow, and we're at the beautiful Ford Motor Company display here. We've got to give a shout out to them. They've invited us to be here to bring this programming to you. They've got a lot that's going on. If you're watching this and you're going to be down tomorrow, come on, swing by Ford. Give us a wave. We're going to be here. We're going to have a number of other panels discussing what's going on in this industry, especially from a supplier standpoint. For now, John McElroy signing off from the North American International Auto Show with the 2016 Autoline Supplier Symposium.
The Autoline Supplier Symposium is brought to you by our signature sponsor, Ford, Go Further, and also by Bridgestone, your journey, our passion. Dow Automotive Systems. Our breakthrough lightweight bonding technologies can be found in many vehicles on the road today. Complete and affordable solutions from Dow Automotive Systems. Denso, global supplier of advanced automotive technology, systems, and components. And by TI Automotive, Fluid Thinking.